Welcome back to another edition of Inside Lebanon Warriors Athletics here on LebanonWarriors.com and ESP Media powered by Sidearm Sports. I'm Jason Griefer. Lebanon AD Keith Pantling, kind enough to give us some of his time here today on a possibly dry day. Who knows with the way Mother Nature has gone as of late. And hopefully it dries out because later on this Tuesday, we're slated to carry the baseball team's game against West Claremont at a 5 o'clock first pitch on WatchHSSports.tv. So, Keith, first of all, do we feel like the field is going to be playable for this game? And if so, when fans tune in to watch our broadcast of the game, what kind of team can they expect to see from Lebanon?
Well, I think we're going to be all right. When the rain comes in steady like that, it tends to be more, unplayable than when we get a big storm that comes through and it kind of bounces off, if you will, and doesn't saturate in, steadily. So if we can get the drag on there by midday, unfortunately, we're not going to get a ton of sun and whatnot throughout the day today, but if we can get it broken up in a little bit of wind, we should be good to go by 5 o'clock. But the team overall, man, I got a theme this week. It's gut check time. I mean, you're in the middle of the spring season. Nobody's undefeated across the board, and it's time to reevaluate kind of where you're at and, do some self-check and remain hungry and humble. Baseball, more than anything, they got a couple big arms and had some big goals and aspirations coming in, just at about 500. No pointing fingers, no doing anything. Let's rally together and continue to fight and claw and get some wins. So they got 1-2 on Friday at Kings. This is a big stretch coming up if they want to make a run at the ECC, and they're certainly capable of doing that. So just remaining together, having some good positive energy and playing some good baseball. But they have to do it top to bottom. We had a couple guys step in that are starting to elevate their play. I think they call them, Coach referred to them as interstate batting averages. So, we have a couple in the 190s, the 110, different stuff like that those guys have to step up. But Luke Marsh came in off the wrestling mat and he's finding his way. Jaden Upper came in and had a great weekend. So we can find 9-10 guys that can hit and, start playing better in the field. We got the arms to be able to make a push. So, excited. But again, gut check time for them and time to make play to their potential.
Yeah, right now sitting at 5-3 in the league. That's tied for most wins in the league. But as you mentioned, nobody's undefeated in the ECC, in a league that just seems to kind of beat itself up. But that's just the way it happens when you've got so many quality programs there on the baseball side of things. Over on softball, there are a couple of undefeated teams in the league, and one of them is yours. They're 7-0 right now in the league and only allowed 9 runs in total in 7 league games. Very, very impressive start there. They're also averaging 11 runs offensively. And so, that's a really, really good start to the season, taking care of the games you should take care of, and the team's doing it thus far. Slated to play West Claremont twice in the next couple of days. You also have Walnut Hills over the weekend, Kings coming up to this point too. Which is the pitching or the offense been a surprise to either yourself or the coaching staff with how good they've been to this point in the conference season?
Well, me personally, nothing's a surprise with Coach Kindle and his program. I mean, they just churn out the next group of great players. It's such a great program. I'm sure if you ask Coach, I don't know that he would say surprised. I think he was trying to find the niche of how they would do, whether it was by committee or who was going to step up and be that, that lead pitcher in the circle. So I think he's pretty satisfied. They go out and play a really tough schedule. I know I've mentioned that quite a bit on here that gets them prepared to really do damage in the conference. So the tournament they were at this weekend, they had some tremendous success and went 3-0, and they played some really good programs, and they're starting to hit the ball. They put up a lot of runs over the weekend. And when you're doing that on top of pitching and playing defense, you start getting some wide margins, and that's a good recipe for finding victories down the stretch. So they continue to get better. That's one thing about Coach Kindle is he knows he wants to peak at the end of the year and get people in position to be playing their best baseball, especially at the plate. And they're starting to really do that.
You look at the way the schedule is shaking out right now. Overall, 10-2 on the year, but those 2 losses came in extra innings. One of them against Beaver Creek in 9 innings. The other against Greenville back in early April in 8 innings. So, I mean, we're, a pitch here, a hit there from being 12-0 at this point as you head into kind of the back end of the season and really hit the grind of the conference schedule over the next couple of weeks. How far off do you and and Coach Kendall think this team is from its peak? I mean, as I said, you're just a tick here or two from being undefeated.
Sure. Well, I haven't been around the program a long time, but from afar and now coming in, I know that there's very high expectations in terms of what they're capable of. And I think most people know that, right? That they can make a serious run. I think if you were to based on my conversations with Coach Kendall, they don't think about that at all. They have really high goals and aspirations to end up in Columbus. And I think they work daily to try to reach their potential and get everybody playing their best softball. And so I don't think he's thinking of that at all, but I certainly think that every year he expects to get far down the road into the end of May and early June. So right now they're just going through the ringer of a mid-season softball season in high school, which is figuring out if you're going to play today, and then just keeping kids motivated, keeping the team together, and improving everybody's play.
And they've been doing all that and then some, especially as you said this weekend, wins over Brunswick, Hilliard Davidson, and Western Brown, and only giving up 5 runs into 3 games. So again, playing well on both ends of things, and we're looking forward to keeping that going to see if they can keep the undefeated run in the league going this week with West Claremont, Walnut Hills, and Kings. Switching gears onto another sport that has to go through the challenges of Mother Nature, and that's the track and field program. And they continue to kind of churn out events when possible. It doesn't seem to matter the kind of weather conditions. They're usually out there trying to get them in as best they can. But we look at the way the schedule's shaking out, and we're about 3 weeks away from the postseason. Still have the Lebanon invite to come also in early May. So that's going to be a big deal, hosting, a number of programs as you'll be doing when that event comes around. But I'm curious to know how close we are to beginning the tapering process for your athletes as the regular season's winding down. Obviously, we don't want to wear anybody out or, have a potential injury ahead of the postseason. How close are we to that process, or are we trying to save that until after the home invite?
I'd have to check in with the coaches on that. I would say that we trust whatever the coaches are doing. They have a history of tremendous success, whether it's distance, field events, sprints, whatever it might be. They know what they're doing. Coach Collier, Coach Simcoe, Coach Bierkins out there, our cross-country coach, is working with the distance runners. So they know what they're doing. We continue to have tremendous, results pouring out, ton of PRs. And I think that now is probably the time they're starting to try to figure that out, what they're going to do, who's going to race when, which events they're going to do or not going to do. And then where they want to be at for that postseason push, whether it be which events or what numbers they need to start chasing. So, even talking to the ADs recently of the ECC, everyone starts looking at that site now to see where they line up amongst, other runners in the competition on a bigger scale. So, we talked about gut check time. It's now's the time where you come to the reality and come to grips with where you're really at. And then it's, are you gonna go make a push to improve and make a run at finishing as high as you can, or are you satisfied with where you're at and to kind of taper off and just kind of let it ride out. It's it's an interesting time just because of how much of a sprint the season is overall in the spring. So like you mentioned, we're just a few weeks away from graduation and postseason events. Once our invitational hits, it's like boom, 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 and we're out of here. So it's certainly the pace is at an all-time high for sure.
You mentioned something there. I thought it was rather interesting and kind of expounded on that. The fact that you have such a solid staff in place that you don't necessarily yourself have to worry about kind of the X's and O's, if you will, as far as that tapering process goes, and kind of expand that out to all of your sports programs. Yeah, obviously the focus being here in the spring, but how much easier does it make your job as an athletic director when you don't necessarily have to check in and say, okay, what are we doing strategically? When is this process going to start? Where are we at as far as the ins and outs of this particular aspect? Does that help you in terms of your overall oversight of the athletic programs?
Yeah, Jason, we're not, I mean, our job really isn't to look at wins and losses and performances on a day-to-day basis. We want our programs to certainly be very successful, but that's why you put tremendous people in place. We're very fortunate here for a lot of our programs where I stepped in 2 years ago and have been able
Mhm.
to look and see so many great coaches already leading programs that do tremendous things for kids. And, you know, you just want to put kids in position to reach their optimal potential. Some programs you have to get more involved than others to say, hey, we're losing kids, or there's some disconnect here that we have to kind of recharge and reevaluate and keep coaches developing and staying on the cutting edge and not getting complacent.
Mhm.
That's the biggest thing is I call them manual coaches. You don't just want to bring out the manual that you did for the last 40 years. What are we doing to improve, to stay on the cutting edge of sports? They're ever evolving. They're ever evolving at the youth level, and those expectations start coming with the kids as they're going through the programs. And we need to continue to stay connected in modern with the kids that are coming through the programs so that they're having a great experience and we're optimizing the potential and connecting with them. So long story short, tremendous coaches make it easy, but continuing to make sure they're trying to be the best they can be and evolving.
Back onto the fields now and the courts. Actually, let's talk about your tennis program and kind of a busy week here going on right now. Monday's setup with Xenia was washed out, unfortunately, and that's just everybody's had to deal with that at some various points over the season. But going forward this week, and we look at the schedule and slated for 3 in a row here on the road coming up with Moeller, Walnut Hills, and Kings before you get Turpin back at home on Friday. So, we're about the midway point of the regular season right now. We've had some ups and we've had some nice wins and some tough losses as well. So kind of mid pack in the ECC to this point. How has the team progressed in your mind and talking to the coaches since the start of the season? And also, how much room do you feel like there is room for growth before we hit the end of the regular season with the team events and also the ECCs in early May?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the two times I was going out to watch them, we got washed out. So, but speaking for Coach Zembeck, similar to track, I think you just want to, I mentioned that gut check time where you have seniors that you get that senioritis and things in the spring. Are they committed to making a run and continuing to improve? There's always room for growth, and so I think that the big thing right now is starting to determine, are guys going to compete in jump levels and go from second singles to first, or compete internally, and who's going to perform, and kind of how are things going to lay out here as we hit May. So I'm excited to get out there and watch them. But yeah, it's certainly, there's always room for growth, and I think that's what they're trying to assess right now. But I mean, right now practices are the hay's in the barn. It's especially with the weather. I mean, we're going out there and it's match against big time opponents. So
Mhm.
we'll know a lot more here in a week as to where we stand and who's playing their best tennis.
Switching gears, let's talk about your lacrosse programs. Let's start with the boys first. A really nice win over Turpin on Monday, getting that win 13-7, and have been playing better as we've gotten into conference play after a very, very difficult non-conference schedule with the likes of Centerville, Lakota West, Pick North, Sycamore in there. Those are very, very strong programs. How impressed have you been with the team to turn it on, especially as of late in league play, and take care of the games, especially early on in the league, that maybe they feel like they should take care of against teams that are kind of in that similar range or perhaps a step behind you?
I was extremely proud last night, Jason. I went out and watched them, the first half of them playing Turpin. And we have a first-year head coach who cares a lot about the program. Coach Chamberlain took over for Coach Cornley, who had to step away. He's very passionate about the program. It means a lot to him, and the rough start was weighing on him. And it would have been very easy. I wasn't sure what to expect yesterday, and those kids proudly represented Lebanon. The way they came out, I was so proud of the way that they were supporting each other. They were down 1-0 early and went and scored 5 straight goals. They were celebrating together. They had positive energy, and it would have been very easy and it wouldn't have surprised me for any team. Just at the high school level, it's standard. You get off to a rough start and you kind of throw in the towel, and seniors, I mentioned that senioritis, and kind of, throw in the towel and call it quits, and everyone's out there for themselves and their statistics. It was a great performance yesterday by them, and I'm really, really proud of them and Coach Chamberlain. The seniors, I know, were very passionate, some great body language on the sidelines, and they earned that win. And I'm excited for the rest of the year because that was a team that is together and excited about playing lacrosse regardless of their record. And they're going to continue to win games.
When you have a tough start the way they did against, as I said, a very, very tough schedule, you mentioned there, Coach Chamberlain, maybe having some worries and some nerves being a first-year head coach coming in here and seeing the early struggles. Did you have a conversation with him at some point to say, hey, look, we know this tough starts early, but the league schedule is coming and there's going to be a lot of opportunities for wins here. How did you go about kind of nurturing him along in his first year?
Well, our conversations were just a lot about staying positive, and I think the big concerns were losing trust from the kids. You want them to continue to trust you, and when you're playing tough competition and losing games, things start working against you. So I just encouraged him to continue to connect with the kids, find out where they're at, continue to make sure that core group of leaders is still all bought in. And if things weren't working, you had to change your approach or whatever it might be. So I've just been really proud of him that, he cared enough to want to fix it, want to earn wins. And he knew what they were going through and it was going to help them long term to go play those games. But he's certainly grown, the team's grown. And again, excited to watch them continue to grow as a team, and to see the buy-in yesterday. They can have a really, really special stretch coming up. Now they got to go to first place Milford on Wednesday, they're rolling people. But we're in a good position to go there and give them our best shot.
Over on the girls' side of things, they're 3-2 to start the year. Last two games, though, that have been in the conference, and they've fallen short on those. The heartbreaker against Anderson, and then Walnut Hills took it to you pretty good. Walnut Hills has been a strong team thus far in the campaign. However, this week, looking like we've got an opportunity to get back to 500. You got Turpin, you got to go to Milford a little bit later on in the week. But we also see the uniqueness in the lacrosse schedule in that you only play the other league teams once, as opposed to other sports, baseball, softball, what have you, where you see them twice. So you've got to mix in non-conference games as well, and you'll do that on Saturday with Lakota West and Springboro's coming up, and you've already had a few tough non-conference games that you've won thus far, 3-0 in the non-conference. How are the coaches working, balancing the ECC portion of the schedule with all these non-conference opponents mixed in that are on the schedule to help get you prepared for the postseason?
That's a good question. Coach Nosnick, I don't think he cares who we're playing. He's just trying to play his best lacrosse and keep things rolling. He certainly goes out and plays a tremendous schedule as well. This program's come a really, really long way, and he's been a part of it for a long time. But, I think the funny thing with spring schedules is everyone has a spring break at a different time. So you whatever schedule you put on paper starts getting flipped around 40 different times, and you'll see stretches where you play 3 games in a week and then you're off for 10 days. So, I think he's just happy to be on the field and have a stretch of games this week. I know last week they were a little light, and now this week they're getting some games in. So, yeah, it's just want to play lacrosse.
Moving indoors, because we have a rare opportunity to do that. We talked about on last week's program the excitement around bringing boys volleyball back to Lebanon. It had been a while, and we talked about the kind of the overall development of it, the support from the players who had played for the program when it was in existence in the past. And now we've got a few matches under our belts. We talked about the opening night win over Princeton. It's been a little bit of a tough go ever since then, but we're still building a program into where we want it to go down the road. And so we've got a matchup slated against Taylor a little bit later on Tuesday night. And then you also see Princeton again next Monday. We'll talk about that one next week. But nevertheless, right now, 4 matches in, lost the last 3, unfortunately. Again, we're building things for where we want to go down the road. But how much progress have you seen within the program from the early season workouts to the early stretch of the regular season? What's that process been like for you and the coaching staff to see all these guys come in who may have never played volleyball before in some instances and come in and try and build a team like this?
Coach Miranda and I were chuckling about this the other day, that we wished we would have filmed the first open gym that they had. I think it was late January, because the rally in the school to bring it back, the boys that go and support the girls program, I mean, they're just thinking we're jumping up and spiking the ball all the time, and it's kind of a sand volleyball type thing. But to watch them kind of go through those initial trainings and tutorials, and then even after tryouts, and I stopped in there for a couple practices, and going through the rotations and watching them scratch their heads, and it took them weeks to get down the alignment and rotations and all the rules of the game, and they quickly realized that it's only 2% jumping up and smashing the ball as hard as you can. And then we laugh too how many times they would jump into the net, right? You have to kind of have a controlled jump, and they're just hitting the net. So the growth is what is so satisfying to the coaches and the adults that have been around this project. And I think the kids appreciate how far they come. They certainly would like to get some more success to make it all worthwhile. And they will, and they see how close we're coming. And they've also been able to see some of the top teams that we aspire to be. And it kind of has helped the coaches really, justify their teaching to the kids that, yes, we do need to do that because that's how that team does it. And they're really successful. So it's been awesome. It's really been awesome to see. And hopefully we can have some more success the remainder of this first year.
Continuing to build, and that's what you need to do. And as we're winding down here today, the spring season's in full force, and kind of brings to an end the official end of the school year. But off-season work doesn't stop for the programs, and that also includes the youth. And we've got an opportunity this summer for various kids of all ages to come on out to Lebanon and get involved with whatever sport they want to get going with here. So we've got a lot of summer camps coming up. Already set up. You can go online, LebanonWarriors.com/camps, get the times and dates for all of that. Just to take us through that process, how that's all going to be executed over the summer, and the opportunity to provide, the ability to develop and grow for the younger generation of Warriors.
Yeah, so obviously we encourage all of our coaches to hold a summer camp. Some are spring. I think Cheers is in May. But regardless, everyone has a camp. Most programs will have a camp, and our student athletes will be involved in those camps as counselors and other things. As Jason mentioned, LebanonWarriors.com/camps. All of the information is there. There's links to the various camps, the price points, the registration for all of those. We kind of have a grid there, so it's a one-stop shop for families to see dates, start planning out what they want to do, what they want their kids to be involved in. Our camps are awesome. As I mentioned, we have so many of our kids involved in participating in them. So please check it out and consider coming by. We're trying to continue to build for a brighter future at Lebanon.
LebanonWarriors.com/camps is the website, as Keith said, to get all the information there. So another great week here, Keith, and looking forward to getting out there onto the diamond a little bit later on this Tuesday and checking out your ball club against West Claremont. Watch hssports.tv. Hopefully Mother Nature cooperates, but another week with a lot of great stuff going on, and looking forward to continuing our conversations going forward.
Thanks for checking in, Jason. We'll see you later today.
Absolutely. That is Keith Pantling, athletic director at Lebanon High School, joining us for the Inside Lebanon Warriors Athletics podcast here on LebanonWarriors.com and ESP Media, powered by Sidearm Sports.